Hi, 30-2s. I hope you guys had a great grad weekend. I love the pictures that so many of you are sending me. They are awesome. So if you have any photos of things that you've done this weekend for grad, please pass them my way. I don't have any new school information for you right now. You will be doing another essay this week. It's your last one, but it ties in with kind of what we're learning about. There won't be a Teams meeting this week, and we're going to be talking about should vaccines be mandatory, which both ties in with our current events and also what we learned about this week. Okay. So I'll go through the PowerPoint quickly. So you should know all of these terms. We've talked about them all before, so it shouldn't be like a huge change for you, but just so you're aware. Does liberalism already work and always work? And if it doesn't work, should we do something about it? Should we limit liberalism if it's not working? Because if something's not working, then we need to fix it, right? Now, the War Measures Act in Canada has been implemented 3 times. We've talked about this before: World War I, World War II, and the FLQ crisis. And it's been replaced by the Emergencies Act. So this was replaced to kind of coincide with the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And so everything that the government does, if they enact the Emergencies Act, must work with the Charter of Rights and Freedoms and must respect people's rights. So there's 4 types of emergencies: public welfare emergencies, severe natural disasters, floods, earthquakes, ice storms. Incidentally, pandemics is also included in there. Public order emergencies, so like terrorism. International emergencies, so if someone declared war on us, or like a use of intimidation that threatens our security. And then war emergencies, so if we are in a war, kind of what do we need to do within Canada. So again, we're always looking at what's the balance between collective security and individual rights and freedoms, and when do we need to protect the collective from individuals, and when do we need to protect individuals from the collective? Okay. The Patriot Act, which again we've talked about before, this stands for providing appropriate tools required to intercept and obstruct terrorism. And I'm very curious how many people it took to come up with that, to make it fit for Patriot. But this was passed quite quickly in 2001 to stop terrorism within the United States. But it basically just took away all rights and freedoms. So this is in your textbook, but it kind of talks about how basically post-Patriot Act, if you had any probable cause as a law enforcement official, you could conduct secret searches, you could monitor their internet, you could access their personal records, you could install a wiretap, all of these different things. And so it basically did not allow any of those freedoms or privacy. And so people really argued against it. And then what kind of challenges force us to reconsider poverty and liberalism and things like that? So we look at poverty and debt, environmental concerns, resource development, internet freedom, censorship, pandemics, and health crisis. Now, we've talked about a lot of this before, so I'm only going to go over poverty and debt, and then very briefly in environment concerns, and then pandemics, okay? So this is Edmonton circa 2005, 2008. So a lot of people think, oh, Edmonton's pretty well off and we're doing pretty good. And we're okay. But like 1 out of every 8 children lives in poverty. And like the average salary of an Edmonton Oilers hockey player in 2008 was 1.8 million. The median household income is only 63,000. Like that's a huge discrepancy. And there's tons of people who are served each month with the food bank, you know? And so it's not as good as we think it is. And same with liberalism and the environment. So the environment involves so many people in so many different nations. And so the government tends to really get involved in this because they have to make regulations. Because if they don't make regulations, a lot of times it won't kind of get done. However, this can often lead to debt because environmentalism is quite expensive. So global warming, which we know is causing the polar ice to shrink and transport routes to lose. Okay, and this has also allowed natural resources to be extracted, especially within the Arctic. So on the one hand, you know, pursuit of wealth, there shouldn't be government interference. We should be able to supply consumers. However, with Arctic development, because it has a huge impact on our natural environment, a critic of liberalism would be like, well, we can't just say every man for themselves and make all this money, because we have to protect the fragile environment. And this has to outweigh the pursuit of wealth. And sorry, I'll go back to that quickly. We also have to think that the government has to get involved to make sure that there's responsible resource development, because if we don't, then we could lose it entirely, and that would have a greater impact on the collective, right? Pandemic. So, I mean, obviously, we all know a billion things about pandemics now. And we will now study this in school, guys, the COVID-19 pandemic. So if a disease threatens a population, it's called an epidemic. And so that's like when it is in like a small area. So you'll hear like colds, flus, STIs, things like that. Now, if a disease kills more people than expected, and if it goes globally, it's called a pandemic. So there's lots of examples of pandemics in history, and like we didn't have healthcare like we do now. But like, for example, the Spanish influenza, which is influenza A, I believe, in World War I, that killed over 50 million people in like 2 years. But they didn't have the technology they did today to like find vaccines and like trace people and things like that. HIV and AIDS is also considered a pandemic still in today's society. And now COVID-19. So so like they talk about this in your textbook, how like see a doctor if you have symptoms, stay home if you're sick, get immunized, which we obviously can't do yet because we don't have a vaccine, wash your hands regularly, respect travel advisories, all these different things. But the immunized one is what I want you to focus on, because your essay for this week is looking at should vaccines be mandatory? And so you don't have to vaccinate your children in Canada. It is strongly recommended, but you don't have to. So assignment 3, the essay. So you basically look at different points of view, and then you explore each point of view, and then you give your opinion. Okay, so it's pretty easy. A lot of you are really good at giving your opinion, so you can do this. It's out of 20 marks, so it should be at least 4 paragraphs. So this is the assignment that we're doing. Should vaccinations against influenza be made mandatory? Okay, now you can bring in examples from COVID-19. You can explain different things. This is for a flu vaccination, but you can say, like, if a vaccine came out for COVID-19, should it be mandatory? Okay, you can talk about that in your opinion. So you need to explore the issue, analyze the points of view, explain and defend your position. Okay, so part 1, introduction. So if you want, you can separate each individual person into a different paragraph. You don't have to. You can put them all in one. So this way is what I've given you in your in that like outline that I left on the Google Classroom. So introduce and define the issue being presented, explain the issue, why it's important, how society impacted, blah, blah, blah. Part 2 is those different perspectives. So who supports the issue? And it doesn't just have to be these people. It could be anyone. So it doesn't just have to be these examples. What is their opinion? What is their position? Who's against the issue? Why? Explain their position. Okay. And then finally, what is your position? So what do you think about vaccinations being made mandatory? Do you think everybody should have to have a vaccine if we have it available? What if they came out with a vaccine for COVID-19 tomorrow? Would you get it? Should everybody have to get it? Things like that. So this is your final major written assignment. We're so close to the end, guys. You're doing so good. So this is the last big thing I need you to do. And then we'll basically spend the next 2 weeks compiling any missing assignments that you have. Okay. So I believe in you. Do what you can, and message me if you need any help, and I will be happy to get back to you. I'll be in the school a bunch this week, I think. So you can email me and I'll get back to you right away. Okay. Bye. Have a good week.